come in. But I'd like to welcome everyone to this evening, or this early evening meeting on how we fight the bedroom tax. Our branch, just to say why we set this meeting, as probably in most people's areas, there's been a huge upsurge of huge problems with the bedroom tax once it was introduced, and a number of people where we work who are facing having to carry out some of the stuff that the bedroom tax will mean for them, felt really angry about it. So we thought, well, what better way to do is to try and bring together a number of branches who are facing problems with their members, and also people in their in their areas having to deal with the poll tax. It's a bit of a giveaway there, the bedroom tax. So we did get 13 branches across UNISON to agree to sponsor the meeting, which I think is really good, and hence we got the meeting tonight. On the platform we've got Marion Nesbitt, who's here on behalf of the Scottish Federation of Anti-Poll Tax Groups, in official capacity. Did I say poll tax? Yeah. I knew I'd say this. Bedroom tax. Here in official capacity. Which is really good. Got Roger Lewis from DPAC, Disabled People Against Cuts. Got Liz Wheatley, who from Camden UNISON, and again who's been doing a lot of work in our branch, and she'll tell you more. And Jane Aitchison, who's in the PCS and having to sort of in some ways look at the other side of matters from the point of view of the benefit changes. So to try and give sort of a broad picture. We will be opening it up to the floor for people to contribute, because that's what's really important, is to hear what other people are doing and to learn from each other in order that we can get some united action going. So I'm going to ask the speakers to speak between sort of 7 to 10 minutes, and then there should be enough time for people to speak from the floor. We are aiming to finish the meeting by 7:30, so obviously we want people to be concise, but to get as much information out as we can. We are going to be passing around a statement which is from the Federation of Anti-Bedroom Tax in England and Wales and Scotland. No, it was Scotland. It's a separate federation. So if that can be passed around and get signatures on that, then there's information at the end that we can give out. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jane.
Well, good afternoon, brothers and sisters. It's very good to be here. Thank you for inviting me here to your UNISON Fringe meeting on this, the hottest day of the year. But I'm still going to endeavour to keep my jacket on during the course of the evening. I'm, as it's already been said, I'm a PCS branch secretary in Leeds. I've worked in the Department of Work and Pensions for 20 years, and for 8 years I was the National President of the Department of Work and Pensions section, which is the most militant section, and I say that unapologetically, of the PCS union. I'm also President of Leeds Trades Council, and it's good to see some Leeds Unison people here, and I'm also the Joint National Secretary of Unite the Resistance. And I just say that to give you a little bit of understanding as to where I'm coming from on this. I was asked if I could just explain what the main benefit changes have been in the last couple of years in 7 minutes. Well, I couldn't possibly do that, because there's so far been 40 benefit changes, major benefit changes, since the Tories and their Lib Dem friends came into power, and they intend to make many more. So I couldn't give you a summary of that in 7 minutes, possibly 7 hours. I'm not going to try. But what instead I'm going to try and say to you is, what is it all about? Well, what it's all about, it's not about bedrooms, is it? I think we all know that. The bedroom tax, it's nothing to do with bedrooms, it's nothing to do with a shortage of bedrooms. It is partly to do with a shortage of housing. It's also not about saving money. We're being told all the time about austerity and about how to cut our cloth, and how it's a bit like when your credit card's maxed out. It's nothing like when your credit card is maxed out. It's not about saving money, it's about making money. It's about them making money by exploiting us. So, what are the main changes to benefits that I can talk to you about? The main change is universal credit. Some of you have already heard about that and will be wondering perhaps what that's all going to be about. That is a massive change to the benefit system that's due to come in October. But in actual fact, although that's a huge change to the way benefits are delivered and to the name of the benefit and so on, that's really just window dressing. And many of the most important changes have already taken place. And I'm going to go through with you what those are broadly, not the details. If you want to make a claim to benefit, then you'll have to see me later. The first major change that's taken place, and this is a major change, is the skiver and scrounger rhetoric that the government have forced down our throats at every single opportunity. They have stigmatised and scapegoated benefit claimants and the sick and the disabled in a way that we have not previously seen. And in particular, for the first time this century, when there has been a depression, a recession, for the first time, sympathy for the unemployed has gone down instead of up. And that is incredible. That's an incredible trick that the Tories have played on us. In the 1930s, it became shameful to be greedy. It's not shameful to be greedy at the moment. In the 1980s, some of us can remember the 1980s easier than we can remember the 1930s. In the 1980s, unemployment was massive again, and the stigma around unemployment decreased. We worked hard on that issue, but now the Tories are having it all. And this has allowed some incredibly harsh changes to happen, A, without any real serious opposition, and B, without people even really noticing. I'm going to tell you some things tonight that some of you won't even know, and you'll be shocked that you don't know that these things have happened in your own country. I'm going to start off by talking to you about sanctions, because sanctions are starting to really bite very hard and cause some serious erosion to the way that people are able to live in Britain today. In October last year, the sanctions regime, which is what happens to you, a sanction is imposed on you if you don't fulfil your job seekers agreement down at the job centre when you're unemployed. The sanction regime changed on October the 22nd with very little fanfare, and many people won't even know what the details of that was. But basically, previously, if you did something wrong, you didn't look hard enough for work, you were sanctioned. And what that usually meant was that you lost your benefit for a day. That was the normal sanction period. And that was certainly the minimum sanction period. The minimum sanction period now, if you've not looked hard enough for a job, and let's be honest here, these are jobs that largely don't exist. There's 2.5 million unemployed people and only 500,000 job vacancies. If you haven't looked hard enough for a mythical job, then now the minimum sanction to be applied to you is 1 month's sanction. That's without benefit. Be clear on that as well. Now, if that was just to talk you through that a little bit, if you were to have that sanction, and it may well be, you might think, well, if you've refused a job, no, this is not for people who've refused jobs. This is for people who, say, for instance, have got on their job seekers agreement, you must apply for 5 jobs a week. Apply for 5 jobs a week in the current economic climate. They haven't applied for 5. Maybe they were poorly at the back end of the week, or their computer was broke, or whatever, and they only applied for 3 or 4. They get sanctioned, minimum sanction of a month. If they've got a family, they can immediately apply for hardship, and that means that immediately they'll get 60% of their benefit. If you know how mean benefit levels are, trying to survive for a month on 60% of your benefit levels is just impossible. The government make the benefits at the lowest possible rates. If you haven't got a family, or you're not in a vulnerable group, I won't go through all the details, then you have to wait 2 weeks before you can even apply for hardship, and you're not guaranteed to be able to receive it. Today, the Citizens Advice Bureau have come out saying that sanctioning people actually doesn't work. Well, we know this, but that it actually moves them further away from the labour market and from being able to find a job. And PCS fully agrees with that point. PCS actually believes now that now is the time to end the sanction regime, because what we are saying very clearly is penury, putting people into a position where they'll have no money at all, is not an appropriate penalty for anything. In this country, even if you're a prisoner, you're fed, you're watered, and you have shelter. To take everything from somebody is just plain wrong. Of course, also, the number one reason why people are turning to food banks in this country is because of the sanction regime. We haven't got the figures because the government are very reluctant to give us the figures. But given the figures that we had in January, we had a record number of sanctions, 65,000 sanctions in January. We're likely to have 1 million people sanctioned this year. When I was president of the DWP, we had Sort El Amel come and talk to us. They're an Arab workers union in Israel. They work in Israel defending Arab workers. And they, at that point, this is 5 years ago, had A4E, you might have heard of A4E, we've had them here now. A4E were working for the Israeli government on a scheme which basically just pulled people in and hassled them off benefit. There were no jobs, but they just hassled people off benefit. And we were absolutely shocked that that was what was happening. And I have to report to you as well that Sort El Amel, this Arab Workers Union, that they fought against this, and even against the Israeli government. They actually managed to get that stopped. But I have to say to you that in your country today, what is happening is that people are being hassled off benefit. Currently, we no longer try to get people into jobs. That's not our target in the job centre. Our target now is what's called off-roll, which is simply getting people off benefit. That's all we're interested in, getting them off benefit. Not interested in what happens to them. In fact, 40% of them, we don't know what's happened to them. But it's probably not something good. Part-time jobs, 0 hours contracts, all that sort of stuff that I'm sure that you know about. My friend here from Deepak's probably going to talk to you a lot about what's happening to the sick and disabled customers. But just to say, the government are not paying £400 million to ATOS for a 5-year contract in order to not get what they want. And what they want is the sick to be hassled off benefits too. Just one point on this, I could talk a lot about that, but I'll let Roger talk to you some more about it. But remember, absolutely every sick person is interviewed repeatedly. No one has an exemption unless you're within 6 months of dying. If you're within 6 months of dying, if you're terminally ill, you're not exempt. But if you're within 6 months of dying, you're exempt. But everyone else, doesn't matter what's wrong with you, you're going to keep on being interviewed. And similarly, the PIP benefit, which has come in to replace disability living allowance, which gave working people as well some real dignity working with a disability, also brought in on the same basis. How are they getting away with this? How are they getting away with this? They're getting away with this because increasingly benefit claimants are not seen as our brother and our uncle and all the people in our community as they were in the 1980s, because it was the people we knew in the 1980s who were unemployed, and that was one of the reasons why we managed to get dignity back into the benefit system then. But they are our brothers and our sisters and our neighbours. So how are they getting away with it? Because increasingly they're being seen as other. They're being seen as less than human, portrayed as less than human, very different from you and I, as scroungers and skivers and so on. And it is the shame and stigma of that which makes people not let on that they're benefit claimants. And that is part of how they're getting away with it. The state is shrinking in front of our very eyes. And it's clear that the benefit cuts are being used to force us all in work to work for less, and very much to keep our heads down for fear that we too could very easily find ourselves in the skiver and shirker category and in this very precarious existence. 1/3 of workers are now just one pay check away from homelessness themselves. Pay has dropped in real terms every month for the last 40 months. And that is the worst that it's been since the 70s. Not the 1970s, since the 1870s. That's how bad things have got now. Lord Young gave the game away when he said, British workers are cheap, come and exploit them. This is what it's all about. How do we join up? How do we fight back? Well, we need to fight for fair pay ourselves and stop the erosion of our terms and conditions and stop the race to the bottom. And we need to unite with benefit claimants and fight for benefit justice as well as fair pay. We need to abolish food banks. Food banks may seem like something nice, but they are not something nice. They are providing a veneer of decency for what this government is doing, which I tell you is totally indecent. Look into food banks. Find out that most food banks will only allow you to take a food parcel 3 times in a year. Most of them are run by well-meaning people, but who will put you through the mill before they give you food. Read the article in The Guardian today that says, we hate being called a food bank, that charges people £2.50 for a food parcel because they want people to understand that nothing's free. Well, I tell you what, they may hate being called a food bank. I hate food banks. We need to get rid of them. We are the 7th richest country in the world. What we deserve is fair pay and decent benefits. We can afford it. We need to fight for it.
Bravo.
Thank you very much, Jane, and it gives a nice overall picture of how desperate it is, but also that there is answers to it. There aren't any more people outside. There is space on the floor in here.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
We're going to come to questions after we've had the speakers, yeah. So hold your fire there for a minute. Okay, I'm now going to ask Roger Lewis from DPAC to...
Up here today to speak. Just to introduce myself a little bit more, my name's Roger Lewis. I'm on the National Steering Committee of DPAC, Disabled People Against Cuts. And along with DPAC, I've been proud to be one of the people who's been part of the foundation, a group of people who founded the Anti-Bedroom Tax and Welfare Benefit Justice Federation in this country. And I'll start off by saying it's always a pleasure for me to speak on the same platform as our comrade from the PCS, not just because she knows so much about benefits, she knows even more than some disabled people I know, and believe me, we know about the benefit system, but also, and in a way, and seriously more importantly, it's because we need the unity between worker and benefit claimants in this country. Thank you. Okay. On April the 1st, the world changed, not just for the hundreds of thousands of people directly affected by the bedroom tax, but I'd say for millions of working people in this country. Because the attack on people who are affected by the bedroom tax is not just an attack on them, it's an attack on their families, it's an attack on their dependents, and it's an attack on our communities. It's an attack on our social housing, and with the attack on benefits, an attack on the safety net, a large part of the safety net of the welfare state that we've had in this country since we built it in the aftermath of the Second World War, in a period of recession, in a period of huge national debt, which we got out of by building the welfare state. Here we are in 2013 with a series of attacks that Jane's outlined very well there, I think, and gives you a sense not just of the complexity of the attacks, but the sheer cost in human misery and suffering because of it. And that can all be very, very depressing sounding, and you think, this is all too much, what can we do? But I'll start with DPAC and why we exist. As I said, I've been on the DPAC National Steering Committee for over 2 years. We've been fighting this Tory government, and we've been fighting these cuts for 2.5 years. We're on the receiving end in the most direct way possible. But we've been clear about one thing from the start, and I've said this, and I've spoken at dozens of meetings, and I've said this at the start of every single meeting I've spoken to. We are not the hardest hit. We are not a special case. We recognised from the start that this attack was part of an ideological attack that had nothing to do with a financial crisis and very little to do with nothing to do with austerity. It was an opportunity by this government to attack us, to attack our class, and to attack everything that working people have achieved in every single area that we've done it in the 50, 60 years that we've been fighting for equality and justice. And that's what DPAC recognises, and I'm proud of the fact that we haven't separated ourselves out and said that somehow we're a special case and we should be treated differently. So there's a broad attack, and DPAC recognises that, and our call has therefore been for solidarity all the way through. This government has been vicious in its attack on us, and I'm sure some of you know this, but I'm going to run through just a little bit of it. You'll know that our first series of campaigns were directed against the DWP, but also against ATOS, who Jane mentioned. ATOS, who were brought in to carry out the changes from incapacity benefit to the employment support allowance and the different parts within that, and within that the that sanctioning regime, the assessment regime, the work capability assessments, a privatised company being brought in to do that, and the misery that it's creating. We showed through Freedom of Information requests, one conducted by the Daily Mirror at the start of the Paralympic Games last year, They showed the coroner's reports at that time were showing that 26 disabled people a week were dying, and their deaths have been directly attributable, at least in part, to the work capability assessments. Those are the coroner's own findings. We now know that figure to be even higher. The government knew that at the time of the Paralympic Games. And what did it do? It chose that time to make the announcement of the contract that James has referred to. They were given the £400 million contract for the transfer from disability leave allowance to PIP, to personal independence payments. What a reward that they got for that. But they didn't get it all their own way, did they? Because if you remember, at that time we had a week of campaigning and activities that DPAC organised, not just in central London, with the high-profile roadblocks and on the final day the occupation of the Department of Work and Pensions headquarters, but also during the week, and perhaps less well known, was the series of protests that took place in towns and cities around the country against Atos, at Atos headquarters, putting them on the spotlight, putting the spotlight. So when Osborne and Grayling and Theresa May got up in the Olympic Stadium expecting to bask in the glory of the achievements of the Paralympic athletes and what they'd achieved, and Atos wanted to do the same, it wasn't surprising to us that they suddenly found themselves being booed by 80,000 people, but it came as something of a shock for them. They thought we were an easy target, they thought we could be singled out, and boy did they go for it. They vilified us in the press, not just for government ministers, but the right-wing press. We all know who they are, we all know they are. Month after month after month, attack on disabled people as scroungers, disabled people as cheats, disabled people are just feckless and need to be put into the workplace. That's been a very, very effective campaign. One of our big disabled people's organisations, including London, at the time of the Paralympics, carried out a survey and asked people in London what their perception was of how much disability benefit was fraudulently claimed, and people said they thought it was between 50 and 70%. The real figure is 1.5%. It shows you how effective this has been. And the effect came very real because of the rise in disability hate crime. Surveys showed that during the second week of the Paralympic Games itself, disability hate crime actually increased during that period of time. But they haven't had it their own way, and we're fighting back. And we fought back, not just for the high-profile roadblocks and the occupations and all those fun stunts that we do, that have been so very important towards empowering the disabled people that are involved in DPAC and elsewhere, but also because we've been behind the scenes calling for unity, unity, unity. We will not be divided. We know this government will divide us in every which way it can. Worker against claimant, migrant worker against British worker, rich against poor, in any way it can possibly do it, and we stand for unity. We will not allow ourselves to be divided, so we have worked and fought hard to build unity with the PCS, and we're very grateful and thankful for the huge practical support that they've given us in our campaigning, but also in helping to set up the Welfare Benefit Justice, the Bedroom Tax Federation, because now that fight has broadened. And I take no gratitude at all in saying, when I said that these attacks on us were going to be broadened out, that's what happened on April the 1st. But we're showing that we can build that broad unity, and we've got that national campaign now up and running. Over 350 people met in central London, not individuals, but representative delegates from large campaigns that have already been set up in Manchester, Birmingham, here in Liverpool, in Norwich, down in the southwest. And we're building them across London as well, and we're showing that where we unite we can fight, and we know this government is scared, and we know this government's running. So we're going to be continuing to do that. We can beat this government over the bedroom tax, but it has to be remembered we need to beat it over the universal credits as well. Because the one thing I say to everybody is you don't get evicted for the bedroom tax, you get evicted for rent arrears. And that's happening because of the cumulative effect of these cuts, the soul-destroying effect it has, that leaves people, like we know the case of Stephanie Bottrell, the 59-year-old grandmother who committed suicide when she was told that she was under occupying and she was going to have to move to a house so small that she couldn't have her grandparents coming to live. Jane told you about what happens with people on terminal conditions. Very few people heard about the case of Linda Wootton, 49, just after the case of Stephanie came to bear. Linda found out that she had been sanctioned by Atos when she was in hospital, in a hospital bed. She was a double heart and lung transplant patient. She was told that she was found fit for work and her benefits were going to be stopped. She had to write her appeal from a hospital bed. She died 9 days later. Her death was hastened by this rotten, vicious government and what they're doing. This is what DPAC's been fighting, not because we love fighting, because we've got no choice. But we're proud that we're at the forefront of doing so, and we will continue. And our message is simple. We know that you are out there supporting us in the trade unions. We are getting support from branches of every single union, from UNISON, Unite, the PCS, from GMB. Tesla have signed up and supported DPAC. More and more people coming up and joining the Welfare Benefits Federation as well. But our message is simple, and it's not to you in here because we know you're with us, but our message is going to be simple to the trade union leadership, and we're going to be there supporting the People's Assembly on Saturday. DPAC will be there, the Welfare Benefits Justice Campaign will be there, because we want to unite with everyone in this country who wants to fight. But we know there are those who are still dragging their feet too much, and we can't afford to wait for the next election and the next government and a Labour government to be elected. We need to see movement. We're fantastically supportive of the trade union support for DPAC and our campaigning in the street movements and the street protests. We want it, we love it, it's been fantastic, and we want that to continue. But we've got to see a fight in the workplaces as well. And we need to see that in every single union around the country. The PCS are fighting as hard as they possibly can, and we're very aware that that leaves them out on the limb. So we're hoping this summer we can see a hot summer in this country. For a number of reasons, not because it would be nice to be out of the rain, but also so we can begin to see to unite these struggles together. And I think the People's Assembly on Saturday is going to be an absolutely amazing opportunity for us to bring that together in a way that we haven't seen. I can't remember the last time I was sat in a hall with that many rank and file trade unionists and the trade union leadership there at the same time. We need to unite these struggles. This is where it starts, at conferences like this with people like you. DPAC's going to be fighting every step of the way with you. I'm glad you're going to be there fighting with us and with our comrades and colleagues here from the PCS and the other campaigns that are involved. Thank you very much for inviting us here today.
Our final speaker before we open it up to the floor is Marion Nisbet, who's come down from Scotland and can tell a tale or two, so welcome.
Hi folks. Hi, my name's Marion. I'm an unemployed disabled worker and I'm directly affected by the bedroom tax. And my background's in social work and addiction services, and I was a former UNISON member. And this evening I'm a very nervous dyslexic who can't quite read her notes, so if you just bear with me. I'm new to public speaking, as some of you might have guessed, but the bedroom tax is the final straw for many disabled people. I know it is for me. Over the last few years I've been accused of being a scrounger and a skiver. I go into my local shop and I see the Sun saying that 50% of DLA claimants are fraudulent. The DWP admits it's only 0.5,
Yeah.
and that's their figures. So let's half them right away, you know. Jane was saying over 40 different benefit cuts. You know, I stopped working in 2005. I didn't just get my job taken off of me, you know, and I was a disabled worker, and I fought tooth and nail to keep my job. But I feel like I had my identity taken off me, and I feel like I'm useless, you know, or I felt like that for a while, but I don't feel like that so much anymore, you know. I'm a proud member of the Black Triangle Disability Group, and I'm also a member of Glasgow Against ATOS, who have a picket once a month outside the ATOS office. They were there when I came out of my ATOS assessment. And I'm quite happy to tell you that the ATOS assessment had nothing to do with my ability to work. But it did have everything to do with, let's see how much fear we can get into this woman, because we're going to every 6 months threaten another £30 off of, you know, the pathetic amount. So you go there and all they are intent on doing is humiliating you, frightening you, you know. And you know, the thing is that, as you can probably tell, I'm a bit mouthy, and I am articulate enough that I've been put in the support group. Didn't ask me what the support group is because nobody's contacted me, there's no support, you know. 80% of the folk that are affected by this bedroom tax are disabled people. But you know, it's important to say that 50% of the people that are claiming housing benefit are working.
Yeah.
You know, let's not forget that.
Yeah.
But they're working for ridiculously low wages, you know. See, along with further welfare reforms like universal credit, it's going to be chaos and misery. And those of you that are working in social work, God help us, you know. Because I know the workload that I had 5 years ago when I was working in addiction services, and I can't begin to imagine what is going to be happening out there, you know. See this universal credit, for whatever reason, people are not going to pay what they're meant to be paying, right, you know. And I am actually seriously worried about my community, you know. If you're deemed fit for work, it's something like $71.40 a week that you're given to live on, eh? If you've got 2 spare rooms, that comes to approximately £80 a month. See, for next month, if they were to take a week's wages off of you and tell you to get on with it, would you manage? You know, because that's what's happening to people in my community. The state tell us it's to reduce their welfare bill of $500 million. In the same week, they introduced a tax cut for millionaires added up to $610 million. You know, the same state that spent $10 million burying a despicable warmonger that waged war on working class communities. I don't need to say too much in this town about that, you know. The same state that are happy to spend $100 billion on Trident has got nothing to do with saving money, and most of you in here already know that, you know. It's a dismantling of the welfare state. A welfare state that my mum and dad, who were active shop stewards their whole life, were very proud of, and I'm afraid to say one that I took for granted. How dare they attack the idea of a family home for working class folk? You can't have the safety if life throws you a bad turn and going back to your mammies till you get your act together. Disabled aunties aren't allowed a spare wee room that their friends and family can maybe come and stay in when they're not well, or if they're in trouble. The bedroom tax movement is growing, and it's been assisted by social media and a strong grassroots movement dominated by working class women, who are the group that are most affected by these condemned austerity cuts. I know you have been busy down here, and we've been quite busy up in Scotland as well. We've had countless local meetings. We've lobbied housing associations, and we've encouraged workers and union officials to join us. The unions are in the process of passing motions and all that. It's great, but let's, you know, we need to go beyond that, because we've, as some of the comrades have said, that is not clearly enough. Govan Law Centre presented a petition to the Scottish Parliament asking that any rent arrears just be treated like normal debt, which would take the threat of eviction away from people. The Scottish Parliament didn't even allow the guy to answer to it, you know. He is resubmitting it though. With a demo resulting in 8,000 individuals in George Square. It's the biggest demo in Glasgow since the poll tax, and you know, let's no mess about it. It is very similar, right? We had a conference where we formed the All Scotland Anti-Bedroom Tax Federation. I still feel like I'm in Star Trek every time I say that. We've created an anti-eviction army, with every area having its own group, but with strong links. We mean to create a human wall to protect the vulnerable, should the sheriff be silly enough to attempt any evictions due to bedroom tax. We even have a song. You can't have a spare room in a pokey council flat. It's absolutely hilarious, but it's also actually a very good song, and it gives the message it does. And it's £2 on iTunes, and if you're really quick, I've got a couple of copies up here on CD for any technophobes in the room, of which I'm one. We've got a strong history of rent strikes in Glasgow. In 1915, the working class women of Glasgow organised a collective non-payment of rent in response to unscrupulous landlords' rising rents. Prominent figures such as Mary Barber organised to overcome the sectarianism and cultural differences within our communities, and created a united front of women backed by a strong trade union of the Red Clydeside threatening to strike in support of the women. That is an important point. The campaign ultimately led to the Rents and Mortgage Restriction Act forcing the landlords to freeze the rents. I'm proud to be a part of the 21st century version of Mrs Barber's army. And we've got a wee saying in the Federation, it was a lassie from Govan Hill, Fiona Jordan, I'm from Govan Hill. If you stand with me, I'll stand with you. It was our first meeting, it was our first ever in any way political meeting, and just like now, a bit like me, she was shaking, but she stood up and she was going to have her say, you know, because women are the ones that are being affected by this. And we are sick to death. And just like me, Fiona Jordan, through no fault of her own, became unwell. She was a teacher, and she went from being a respectable member of the community to a skiver overnight, you know. So what else can you do? You can join or you can start a local anti-bedroom tax group. I'm sure most of these in here are already involved. You can lobby your MP. But this is the important one, given where we are. You go to your union and you agitate for strike action around these inhuman welfare cuts. My big pal, Tommy Sheridan, and his wee sister's in the room, by the way, which was lovely to see her. Tommy's got a lovely wee saying. He isn't personally affected by the bedroom tax, but he's personally offended by it. To be offended by what these people are doing. ATOS are doing a tick box system, which is very similar to the ones that the Nazi Party used in the 1930s. Which resulted in 100,000 deaths before they even turned on the Jewish community. And that community were the disabled, and they were forced to wear black triangles. I'm sorry, but the similarities are just too scary. It really is an ideological attack, as my comrade said, and it has went on for far too long. You know, and you could be part of that community tomorrow, you know. That's what I really want to get over here. I was an active trade unionist. In fact, I was supposed to come to the conference the year. I fell out of one day and broke my spine in 2 places, you know. But I'm fighting, I'm working hard. I'm working harder now than I ever did, you know. Because see, when your back's against the wall and you've got nothing to lose, then what the hell, you know? And I do have support networks around me. I'm not going to lose my house, right? But being from a social work background, I know that there's plenty of people in my community that is going to lose it, you know? A good friend of mine recently, and she is a lovely friend, she told me that she could pay my bedroom tax for me. She's a teacher, and she's like, oh, I spend more than that in a month in a pub. And, you know, and I said to her, no, Nicola, because my pals didn't cause this deficit. But see, in Duncan Smith and Catherine, see their pals. It was their pals that caused it, so their pals can bloody pay for it, you know? Of course there's money, you know? As I was saying earlier, they can find money when they need it, you know? So, you know, up in Scotland, it really is about just going out and chatting doors. Because see, for every woman that's stupid or gobby enough to stand up here and talk to you, there's another 1,000 or odds that are sitting in the house. Because I've been that woman too. Taking an diazepam, shutting the cupboards, kicking on, how the hell am I going to get through this, you know? The suicides that have happened, Stephanie Bottrell is one. I also heard last week a good friend of mine actually, his uncle, a couple of months after being deemed fit for ATOS, you know, killed himself. Talking to a guy at the weekend there, and he says, well, if the sheriff's officers are coming in the door, I'm going out the veranda. You know, that's what we're talking about here. We need to create a human shield with this anti-eviction army. We did it during the poll tax, and we done it, and we beat them, and they had to give up, you know. But they've been so much cleverer this time, because they're not going for oils. They've learned, you know, they're not daft Tories, But let's shave off the weakest, you know. Let's shave off the most vulnerable. I need you to get into your unions. I don't know, most of these are probably shop stewards. If you're not the shop steward, look for the shop steward. They'll be the one sitting in the corner having a nervous breakdown. Make them put the motions through. Ask them to start agitating, you know. But meanwhile, get into your communities. Stand with a vulnerable person.
Yeah.
You know, that is so important. And I know you need to go to your work, you know, and you need to pick the reins up, and you need to do this and you need to do that. But collectively, you know, collectively through your unions, you can organise something, you know. Mary Barber managed to do it in 1915. We've got phone trees and everything these days, you know. We're not relying on pots and pans. That's what the women in 1915 had to do. When the sheriff's officers came into the street, they battered their pots and pans and they all came out. And they kicked hell at the sheriffs, you know. And they stopped the evictions. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that there are no evictions. We need to cancel the debt. No more suicides. Call for a general strike and join the global fight against austerity. Axe the tax, bin the bomb, work towards a society that protects and enables its vulnerable and disabled. And comrades, see for me, better to die on my feet than live on my knees. Because I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not being made to feel like I'm a useless member of society, because I'm not, you know. And I need the people in unions. I've already got the RMT sorted in the way down. I gave the wee guy who was checking my ticket a copy. You can't have a spare room in a Pokey Council flat, and I was joking with him saying that's the RMT sorted, I'm off to do UNISON now. You know? But brothers and sisters, thanks very much for listening to me. Thanks.
Well done.